Hello viewers, it's time for the Manufacturers Cup once again. I have picked Lamborghini and we're hoping to have a good race at Suzuka for the first round. And I need to have a good race because I'm missing rounds 2, 3 and 4. I feel like my pace is pretty good, so let's jump in and see what we can do. So yes, my first ever race for Lamborghini. It brings us to Suzuka for a 20 lap race. This is my first attempt at the qualifying. Try to obviously start ideally towards the front of the pack. As I said, I'm missing rounds 2, 3 and 4 of this championship, and therefore my first round is my only round. I need to try and score well here into the final chicane of the lap. Getting plenty of rotation. The Huracan Lamborghini feels pretty good. A bit wide on the exit though, not the best way to round out the lap. Now, the lap was okay, but you can see there my reaction. I knew that I could do better. I was a second away from pole position, which incidentally was another Lamborghini. The Audi R8 there, second with Porsche, Ferraris. Then myself here with the beautiful camel livery. 1 second back in 7th place. Now, I'll quickly go through this race because it was actually a pretty decent one, but my second one was a lot better. But we begin in 7th. I had hope of moving forward because my qualifying lap, whilst being solid, I think could have been better, and therefore I think there's definitely potential to have been quicker than some of these cars in front. And look at this, the Porsche there in 3rd position has an awful run and triggers all this anarchy and carnage on the exit of turn 1 or turn 2, and as a result he's going to keep his position, but the Ferrari getting sent wide. As we look for a move on Kev, decide to not go for the move. If you're going to go for that overtake into 130, you've got to be really sure about it. And I thought, you know what, let's play the long game. It's a long race, 20 laps. Then looking up the inside, don't quite make it work there. But as I said, 20 laps around Suzuka, roughly 2 minutes per lap. We're looking at roughly 40 minutes of racing. So there's plenty of time to try to move forward. Don't need to rush anything. And these longer races are always great. It's always really good to see the Manufacturers Cup come back. Looking up the inside, and I'm not sure if he was going to let me go there, but a bit of a miscommunication between the two of us. The contact made, thankfully no damage being done. As heavy damage is set to 1 for this race, as 2 cars in front bang indoors. The Ferrari demoted to 5th for the time being. As we head around towards Spoon, looking for this overtake, the Ferrari on the back foot for now. I'm on the inside, not quite able to make it work there, but we engineer a gap on the second half of the corner. We're going to run him a little bit wide as we then get the exit. As we head down towards 130R for the second time here, we're kind of going to get caught out of position. And I perhaps should have moved across, but I didn't do it in time. The Super goes through. We're on the outside into 130R, which is quite a dangerous place to be. The Super goes very wide. Gets dirty tyres. I'm going to send it up the inside here, kind of inadvertently. And I was trying to let him go back past here, but he just didn't really accelerate. So I thought, you know what, we're going to continue and move forward up into 5th place. So not the tidiest lap of all time. We've come out the other end of it in 5th, although we're under threat here from the Ferrari once again, covering the right hand side, the inside. Let's try not to overshoot into turn 1 and then turn 2. It's really easy to do, to lose that rear end going through the transition of 1 into 2. So here we are, lap 6 now. The race has settled down by this point. Those opening laps, the opening exchanges, very tense, lots of contact. We've remained unscathed. However, Bergio here with a mistake into turn 1, really easy to do, as I was just saying. Rejoining, unfortunately for me, just in front, and I wasn't quite able to get through. However, the race very much on here as we go down the back straight. Again, not quite able to get up the inside, so opting to just go for the bump draft and bide our time, be nice and patient. So it's building up into a good race here. Started 7th, looking here for 4th up the inside, getting the job done. Thankfully he left the space on the inside and didn't really fight it too much. But we have a really good opportunity here, as I've noticed the Huracan pretty good in a straight line, and it's a brand I've not chosen yet in Gran Turismo 7. Obviously opting for Porsche and BMW a lot of the time. Lamborghini being used for the first time on this game for me, as traditionally this car was very difficult to drive, had a lot of rotation, maybe too much, and so it wasn't one of my favourites. After a good 40 minutes of racing, it was a solid result to bring it home in my first race in 3rd position. Take that, I think that was a really good race, really consistent, up 4 positions, nice. Okay, 282 points, is that enough? Well, I decided it wasn't enough. I was going to go again and risk losing the 282 in order to gain a few more. 294 if I were to finish in 3rd position again, and above 300 for 2nd and for 1st. So of course a big risk here to go twice, but given that I only had 1 round in this championship, owing to being on holiday for round 2, 3 and 4, then, well, you know what, I might as well just go for it. So this is my qualifying attempt for this 2nd race. My first lap of 59.1, which was not the best lap at all. I made many mistakes, so I knew that I could improve, looking ideally, at least for me, for a high 57. And we go purple through sector 1, which is a good sign that the Lamborghini Huracan gets really good rotation, as I kind of touched upon, and that does help quite a lot through that first sector, obviously with the S's and the fast direction changes. So nearly 2 tenths up in the 2nd split. We actually lost a bit of time through that, getting the rotation in the hairpin, and nice speed on the exit. Let's fast forward it slightly on the run around to Spoon. Difficult corner this one, especially this 2nd apex, as we're trying to really get on the power as early as possible. Qualifying, as I said, really important. You know, we did fight through from 7th to 3rd. I don't think it would have been possible to get 1st or 2nd in that opening race, but we still want to get as far towards the front as we can. Again, that chop at the exit not helping. It's not quite going to be a high 57, it's going to be a low 58. That puts us 9th on the grid, 8 tenths away from pole position. And so, you know, from 9th, I was thinking it's going to be difficult to get to 3rd. But this turned out to be a really good race, and one that it had its ups and downs, but I really enjoyed it. Let's jump in. So once again, 20 laps, starting on the medium tyre, having to use the soft tyre later on. We'll go in just after the halfway mark. And I'm presuming most people here are on the medium tyre, as we have similar pace. And we might have the odd soft tyre runner who will then have to swap onto the mediums at the end of the race. Up behind the Porsche here, just trying to settle in. And of course, try to not get heavy damage, because we will have to carry that all the way to the pit stop on presumably about lap 11 or 12. And that's going to cost us a lot of time. So just settle in. Nothing crazy for the time being. We do have a Polish driver immediately behind in the Mitsubishi Lancer, and therefore we can't rest just yet, as he actually goes up the inside, goes for the move, doesn't quite make it work, but I was almost overtaken there. So a bit of a warning shot from the Mitsubishi driver, showing that, you know, I can't really hesitate here. It's a very close pack. He's really competitive when you start getting to the higher driver level ratings on this game, where even if you're fighting for 9th, you know, everyone's still quick. So we've got our work cut out here. Only 3.5 seconds to the lead. So this one looking like it's going to be a lot more compact compared to the previous one. The top 2 in the previous race, in the first race, they just left us for dust. They were long gone. But here, it seems like a more evenly distributed race. Everyone very, very close by. So any mistake will be punished pretty badly. Into the chicane for the first time on the exit, 2nd gear, on the power, try to run the curb to get the power on as early as possible for the long straight. Not quite close enough to the Porsche, which has good traction traditionally. Mitsubishi still in tow very much, but we're just going to resume the racing line. And through turn 1 and 2, it's just a case of steering as little as possible, as little as you can get away with. As I mean, just look at that, look how close it is, first to last in one long train. End of lap 2 on to the beginning of 3, just beginning to sense an opportunity, as The Mitsubishi looks for the move, but instead I'm going to go for the move and pull off a very late swing to the inside. I think the Porsche got caught off guard slightly there, and thankfully did leave the space and didn't quite turn in. And so a very efficient overtake, could we say. Moving up into 8th. Now we just need to bridge that gap, as we've done for the majority of lap 4. I noticed I was pretty good through sector 2. So the 2 Degner corners and then the hairpin. So I tended to be gaining through that section of the track. Now you might notice the gaps beginning to open up, especially the leader. So the Ukrainian driver in first. I was trying to work out at this point if he was on the medium or the soft, and given the pace here, it seems that they're on the soft and will therefore be on the worst tyre later on. I had half a chance of a move there. You see the flash from the Swedish driver in front, perhaps to say thank you for not going for that move. It was on, but as I alluded to in the first race, you don't really want to go for a stupid move that costs you 2 seconds. It turns out I didn't need to anyway, because he went wide almost into the back of the GTR. But keep the car gathered up, and we gain another position back to 6th, or up to 6th for the first time. Making some solid progress here, and this is a bit of a trend in a lot of my races where the qualifying doesn't quite go to plan. So I'm perhaps a little bit further back than I ought to be on pure pace, but then when it comes to race pace and consistency, the speed comes to me and we can move forward in the race. So second place is at the front of this group here, so things are very close indeed. And we have some definite chances of moving even further forwards. As take a quick look back, you see the Lamborghini driver not at all close as we consider going for the bump draft, but you know what, I had some good momentum there. We went for the inside and met the apex, and I think just turned in a little bit too late, did the GTR. It goes wide onto the extra runoff. That's another position, and the race is really going to plan so far. You know, just slowly but surely moving forward. Lap 6, I had a couple of mistakes. You see the gap opens up to those cars in front, but if I can just string together a couple of good laps, we're very much in with a shout of this second place, which is, again, the front of this group. The Lamborghini performing really well at this point. It's got some great rotation. It feels like the rear end is planted, unlike what it was in the past, especially in the GT Sport days, when it felt like the rear of the car would swing round, and that can be a good thing if you can control it, but it was really difficult to do that. But of course, we have a mistake there from the Genesis, puts the 2 in front side by side, but we have some new physics, of course, with the recent 1.55 update, and that seems to have just settled these cars down quite a lot easier to drive now, as I seem to have found a bit more pace since that update, so I'm quite happy about it, if I'm completely honest. But as we were just touching upon there, the Genesis in third, just a couple of mistakes through that chicane. It seems like it's got an inherent weakness given its poor braking. It just doesn't quite stop as quick as other cars, and you know, into the chicane at the end of that, one of the biggest braking points. There's a big braking zone, you know, high speed in a straight line, and I think that car is struggling through that sequence of corners. And you can just see that the guy in second there, the Portuguese driver in the Ferrari, just beginning to pull clear slightly. And so if I'm going to try to navigate this group, I need to try and do it quickly without losing time, and that is the difficult thing. Into the hairpin, I'm going to take that wide entry to try to secure a good exit, as it's going to be quite difficult to go for this move, because obviously the Porsche in front has the slipstream, the Genesis, which in turn is quite a good car in a straight line, so it's not going to be easy. But again, long race, let's just stick in there and wait for the opportunities to open up. Now, an interesting bit of, let's say, sportsmanship or tactical awareness here is that, you know, we could have maybe gone for this move as we have the momentum. I just decided to back off the throttle. Again, it's not worth going for that risk where I'm maybe at best half alongside going into 130R. So let's just go through their single file. on a corner like that, which is so fast, you don't really want to be going side by side unless you're fully getting an overtake done. So we're just going to wait for the time being. Gap to the leader, 8.2. So that seems to be soft tyre pace. We will see about that in a few laps time. Into turn 1, you see the back end there just beginning to want to break away as we now enter the 8th lap. So the tyre's just wearing out. It was quite a low tyre and fuel strategy race with only 2 times on both. So the tyre wear wasn't that quick. The fuel wasn't really to be worried about. It would end quite low by the end of the race, but it wasn't really to be worried about. And so just driving consistently and just managing the drop off on the tyres was the main thing. And so we didn't really have to focus too much on any sort of pit strategy. Although we are coming to that phase of the race. Still 1.2 to the Swedish driver behind fellow Lamborghini driver. So of course we want to beat the other Lamborghini drivers and try to finish above them. Now I'm sensing that the Genesis has just got his act together slightly and just edged out, say, 3/4 of a second here, with the Ferrari just begin to pull clear. A couple of good consistent laps, that's what it can do for you. Just opens up that comfortable gap that the Ferrari now has in second. Now here, the Porsche, with a couple of bad corners consecutively, good tactical awareness, decides, you know what, he's going to let me through, gives me the slipstream, the Genesis, and hands me the position. And it's good tactical awareness in the sense that he probably sensed I was quicker in this moment. I could hopefully catch up with this guy. And look at that, one braking zone, Lamborghini versus Genesis, and it's a night and day difference. The Genesis clearly needs to get some upgrades on those brakes. As we head towards turn 1, we are now looking for this podium, and we have a massive moment. I've alluded to this many times, just the difficulty through that corner. We're going to have to bail off the circuit, then back on again. We've definitely lost a good 2 seconds, I would say, maybe more. So that's a major setback in the context of this race, and it seems like such a minor little moment. But we had really good momentum moving forward, and it takes so long to even gain a second in a race like this, where everyone's so even, and so losing 2 seconds is a major setback. But we're still in 5th. We still have the potential here to finish well, and so we mustn't give up. We must continue riding out to that curb on the outside. End of lap 10 here, you can just see that the Ukrainian driver goes into the pit lane, confirming that they were on the soft tyre. Likewise, the Portuguese driver into the pits and the Genesis, both of those were on the medium, as probably expected. So this is quite interesting now. As we continue for one more lap on the medium, we're going to have better soft tyres. We are going to get undercut slightly, so we might lose a second or two, but we will have a stronger second half of this race. And also the Portuguese driver, I think, is someone I can still gain on, but definitely now the Ukrainian, knowing that they are going to be on the medium tyre at the end when I'm going to be on the soft. And the difference between the two tyres is about a second, maybe a second and a half at most. And with 9 laps to go after this one, you know, let's say 9 seconds overall that can be gained. That's roughly the gap that he had. And so this is not going to be impossible to catch up with the Ukrainian driver. But we are at the moment catching back up with the Porsche. Now I should really be ahead. Lamborghini behind with a mistake on the exit of Degner 2 into the hairpin. Definitely catching up here. Now, of course, this guy does not have the benefit of slipstream from the Genesis, which went into the pit lane at the end of the previous lap. So now heading round towards Spoon. Now just trying to size this move up. This is an important phase of the race. The middle of the race, just before the pit stops, I'm going to come into the pit lane at the end of this lap, and I'm presuming this Porsche is going to do the same. And the Huracan has really good top end. When you combine that with the slipstream down the back straight, this is going to be a bit of a savage move. We're going to get the toe, move to the inside, fully alongside before the apex, and we're going to go through. Back temporarily, or into temporarily, the lead of the race Two guys behind fighting. That slows them both down slightly. As actually the Spaniard goes through into the pit lane. Quite an awkward entry over to the soft tyre. As we exit, let's take a look at the situation. Well, the Spanish driver behind with the penalty. A 3-second penalty for cutting the pit lane entry line, which is really easy to do. I mean, if you go back and slow it down, I was incredibly close to doing the same. So he's going to serve the penalty here. And that's going to pretty much put him out of the race. You lose a lot of time with those penalties. And so with Tom now serving his pit stop, we're going to move back to 4th. And this is going to be a clearer picture, as you can see on the left-hand timing tower. We have the Portuguese driver in the lead. We have a purple sector being set, so the pace is good on the soft tyre now. We have the Ukrainian in second, about 4.5 seconds in front. And we have the German there in the Genesis, about 1.5 seconds in front. So it's now my job to try to put these laps together, try and catch up. Firstly, with the German in the Genesis. That would be mission number 1. We're going purple through the 3rd split here on lap 14. This was a really good lap I put together. And this is the kind of pace I need to be at consistently. We're in the 59s on the medium tyre at the beginning of the race. We're about to set a 57.8. Fastest lap of the race to this point. I did get beaten, but still pretty good to dip into the 57s, and the pace was really good. By lap 15 I was on the back of the German. Well, let's not forget, of course, the German went into the pit lane 1 lap earlier than I did, and therefore has 1 lap worse tyres, you could say. Now I'm about to pull off an absolutely savage overtake because he begins to go defensive and, you know, covers the left hand side. Fair enough, but we all know how bad the brakes are on that car, but also the prowess of overtaking around the outside. So he covers the right. I'm going to go to the left, late on the brakes, swing it around the outside. Absolutely beautiful move up to 3rd. Mate, come on. So there we go, another position gained with a 3-second gap now to the Ukrainian driver. As the clouds thicken, it's not going to rain, but it is noticeably darker now. You can see some dark clouds there in the distance. We have a 2-second gap now. This is lap 17. Only a 4-second gap to the leader. And so we, I wasn't sure exactly what was going to happen here. This guy, Ukrainian in the Ferrari, was really quick on the medium tyre. Let's not forget he's on the worst tyre right now. I wasn't really able to gain as much as I'd like. I was definitely gaining. I was getting closer and closer. Or would it be enough? Well, unfortunately not, because of this moment here. Just got a moment of oversteer. I managed somehow to gather that up and get it going again. I really thought that was gone completely. But this is the end of lap 19 now. One last chance here to try to catch up as we cross the line to begin the final lap. Only still 2 seconds behind this guy. But he's driven really, really well on that other set of tyres. On the medium set of tyres, I'm not quite able to get the job done. Now, let's not forget, of course, that I was aiming for a podium, because that would be an improvement upon my score of 282 points from the previous race. So for this I would get into the 290s, but if we get second it'll be above 300, which I haven't done in a long time. And we're really relying on a mistake now, I would say, as we head into the hairpin. This is as close as I've been. When their name appears, then you know you're quite close to them, and it has done there, at least momentarily. Into Spoon, again relying on a mistake. Now, of course, through 130i it's always easy to make a mistake. You can run wide on the exit, but this guy's driven so consistently, I'm not really expecting it to happen. As I must say, it's been a really good race. A couple of mistakes. The first mistake where I drove wide on turn 1 and 2 cost me maybe 2 seconds, and a few more seconds with the spin a few laps ago, or the near spin. It could have been a really good challenge for the lead, which would have been a miraculous race, but instead, it's going to be a very solid third. Very happy with it. we are going to improve our points, and this hopefully gives us a good points haul for the championship, which I can't compete in. Well, great race. It's still an improvement over the first race, so it was worth going again. But look at that, up 6 positions. We'll take that. That is a great result, I think.